So we'll take a few questions. If all the panelists could turn on their mics in front of them, it takes a few seconds. And I don't know if someone from APA will help us, or ASLA help us on circulating a microphone around, because the questions need to be on the video. What I'm fascinated by is, why I'm excited about this part of our profession is we go from the macro level down to the micro level. And I enjoy getting involved from regional planning efforts all the way down to the detail. I think that hopefully that's what our presentation showed you on that. So question way in the back.
Thank you. My name is Mike Gonzalez, and I'm fortunate to be a co-worker of Madison Roberts at Michael Baker International. But I'm also here to represent the San Diego Regional Urban Forest Council, and I wanted to thank Madison and the San Diego chapter to allowing us this really brief plug that I wanted to give here at this point. The San Diego Regional Urban Forest Council, our mission is basically to promote the benefits for a cleaner, healthier, and more prosperous San Diego region. And I wanted to introduce Ann Faggy, our fearless leader. Ann, right there, if you wanted to stand up. A lot of folks here, many of you probably know of Ann's fantastic qualifications in this area. So we're really happy to be here. And the main message that Ann wanted me to give to you is that we're excited to be here. We're excited to meet some of you and to more importantly, work with you and get your ideas on a concept that is very important that we're working on involving the use of the right tree species for the right spaces. And more importantly, considering the long-term sustainability requirements of tree species in terms of long-term care and maintenance and management, factoring their watering and all those other requirements of the trees, we could really develop a really site-appropriate menu of tree species that are correct and right for the right spaces, with even consideration given to first looking at possibly native species first before you look at ornamentals. However, recognizing that native tree species may not be appropriate for a certain location or may not even be desired, but that's okay, that's fine, because we could use this as a platform to educate the public about the general benefits of native trees and to inform them about important events such as the California Native Plant Society and their native plant sale in Balboa Park next weekend. So, Ann, did you want to say something real quick?
Yeah, just let me give one piece of advice, and that is to break the cycle, the 8-year cycle that we have. We plant a tree, we don't take care of it, it dies, and then we either leave it empty or we plant a tree. The advice is to get arborists involved. Get them to review your plans, get them to make sure that all of it is going to be something that can be installed properly and maintained, and then get arborists involved during the installation. Get a quality nursery stock, get it planted right, get plenty of space, even with silvocels, it needs to be planted right. Get it watered and do the young tree pruning, and we'll have trees that are there for then 30, 40, 50 years. But please, involve arborists. They're the ones that have to work with it. Once they're in place, they have to live with your designs, but they're going to be greatly improved if we can do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I want to know how, now that Oceanside's got a couple years of experience with reverse angle parking, how has that been embraced by the community? Is it working out well? And are there any lessons learned you'd like to share with us about that?
Flip the switch upward.
As far as I can tell, it's been widely embraced and praised. I have not heard any negatives, which I was kind of surprised to learn, given Oceanside's proclivity for polarization. But I think it's been a success all around, both from residents that I've run into and spoken with and business owners as well.
One of the most important aspects, I think, of a project like that is that we probably proposed back-in-angle parking on 10 projects that have eventually eroded away from the community not supporting them, mainly because they can't visualize them, they can't see how they work. So when something's built in our region here, it's so important to show how well that works, and it's a great example to send people there. Back?
I'm so curious about that Oceanside project. When you first went into it versus what it transformed into. Can you please explain the amazing transformation?
The life cycle of the project? Well, From my perspective, I admittedly got on the project just as concept design was wrapping up, so I took the project through construction documents and into construction. You know, the initial goals of the RFP were rather modest. It was just, the city just wanted to improve traffic circulation. So I think it was, you know, again, I think the synergy that we came upon between the design team, Kimley Horn, their traffic expertise, and civil engineering, our expertise that we brought to the table as landscape architects, and most importantly, we were drawing upon the expertise of city engineers and planning staff as well as the business people. So we were really listening at first to the needs and then recognized these are good, we can obtain reasonable design solutions to create a complete and green street.
I was just curious, though, about the funding. Did you guys seek out new funding for the new ideas?
You know, I'm not sure if the city was able to leverage grant funding for green streets. Maybe you can talk to that. You know, I know that redevelopment dollars, it was right when redevelopment was winding down, so I think there was a fair amount of redevelopment dollars that were allocated to the project.
Yeah, my name's John Helmer. I was actually the acting, well, I don't know what I was. The redevelopment agency was gone, and they hired me to take over downtown, both capital improvement projects and private development in the downtown area, which was their old redevelopment area. And we got 2 grants, actually, from Sandgrain. Smart, I think we got a smart growth one, and I forget, there was one other one. I think we got a total of about $4 million for that. And I think there were some other state of California clean water grants we got for that as well.
I think that follow-on story about the funding that went into that would be something that we'd love to see published. That would be really, really important to know how and
You know, we worked very closely with Kathy Baker, who is the redevelopment director before she's now up in Riverside. So I can reach out to her and find exactly where all the funding sources were drawn from.
These days, the more benefits a project can show, the increase exponentially the chance of getting grants. So we all have to think about multiple things, multiple benefits to find that very rare funding source. Steve?
As a side note, before we take any more questions, I just also wanted to note that the ASLA Stewardship Committee is recording this, and we'll have it available on our website probably in a couple weeks or so. Oh, a month.
Thanks, Mike. Some of the measures, if you go back to the 3 E's, are pretty easy, like the environmental benefit. You can look at stormwater improvements, the social or health benefit, you know, less accidents and things. I didn't hear any or much conversation about the economic benefit. And, you know, that's usually a big deal in a commercial corridor like this. So I'd be interested, are we collecting that data? I mean, our intuition says it's prettier, it's nicer, there's more walkability, there should be more commerce, but, you know, intuition doesn't get you very far. So do we have any data on that?
I think it's practically, you know, in terms of the metrics for measuring on, we probably don't have as much data, but you can see it in these projects that are after they're built and see what actually happens. So the proof is in, you know, the real world as things convert around. But it's amazing how the investments can multiply based on land value and customer base. All those things are easy to justify, especially things like a maintenance assessment district. It's a pittance of money that goes into it, but the benefit the land value gets back out of it is substantial. So I think most of it's just based on real-world conditions. Anyone else on the panel?
Circulate San Diego had a lot of metrics on the Bird Rock project, which wasn't necessarily a green street, but it brought a lot of the complete street measures into it, and there is financial analysis there that's very helpful to see the before and after.
And I wanted to add the County of San Diego, when they did their BMP design manual and addressed green streets, did a life cycle cost analysis of the actual sort of comparison of green street approach versus a traditional approach, and demonstrated, at least in an analysis, that it was a cost effective from a both an operation and maintenance standpoint. So I think that isn't directly to your question, but there is an interest and there is research on the cost and benefits of the projects themselves.
Oceanside is unique because choosing a couplet or not to do a couplet can have ramifications for businesses.
No, most definitely. I think in Kimley Horn's traffic analysis, they were looking at couplets, what ultimately chose to the south on Seagaze, but there was a lot of community input when we finally went out to the local community and residents. Well, why aren't you doing Pierview, which is a close proximity to City Hall? It's much, handsomer street, but it also has the farmers market during the daytime hours on Thursdays. So we didn't want to block off our only exit basically out of the downtown core. So there was talk about a tandem use, but ultimately we went back to Seagaze. So really there was a lot of, I think it was only financial constraints that drove the lack of improvements along Seagaze, because basically the only improvements that were able to be funded was just basically striping that roadway, a little bit of hardscape improvements there, but the lion's share of the improvements were along the Mission Avenue corridor there.
Let's wrap this up with just one more question. Is there another one?
Yeah, I have a question over here. Hi, everyone. Elisa Goldman, thanks for being here. My question is about mid-block crossings and sort of everyone's experience with them in San Diego City and as well as San Diego County, and if you think we're moving in the right direction to get more of those to allow for more pedestrian accessibility.
A lot of it depends on the block length and whether it's justified in origins and destinations. If there's a real clear need that it should go there, but they need to be controlled in the sense through a hybrid beacon or rectangular rapid flashing beacon as the method for getting across those mid blocks. Unless it's just one lane each direction with a median refuge in the center, that's about the only way you can do it safely without control. So I think they're important, especially when you've got more than 150 feet in each direction to go to a safe crossing. We can't expect people to, especially the pedestrian scale, we can't expect them to go that far out of the way. And so I think what we're doing is going in the right direction. I think we need to see a lot more of them.
I guess my question specifically has to do with municipalities. Are they supporting them? Are they fighting them? Are they giving them a chance?
Well, a lot of it comes back to the warrants that they're typically looking for. I've never understood why that warrant system is unless you can show that if people are cutting across the street at a certain volume, then you can't justify putting one in. But that's like saying, well, decide where a new road goes in an area has no roads. If there's no, let's see where cars are going through this undeveloped area, and then we can say a road can be built. It doesn't make sense, the warrant system, the way it actually works. But I think there's other pressures. It's not just down to warrants these days. Community pressure can help a lot on getting some of those mid-block crossings in. But they always have to be done safely and in the right manner. Okay, well, thank you very much for your attention and patience on this, and let's round for the panel.